Hey, hello, hello. All right, my name is Crispina French, and I am a textile recycling artist, activist, and entrepreneur. And I've been recycling used clothing and textile waste since 1987. Um, it seems like 5 years ago in some ways, and in other ways, it seems like, I don't know, forever ago. But anyways, every Thursday, sorry, every Thursday I do a little live tutorial on how I might inspire you and others to just think a little bit more consciously about our textile consumption and ways that we can reduce our impact on the environment when it comes to textiles. So I call people who recycle used clothing and textile waste, like scrap fabric from manufacturers or bits of whatever, the textile waste. I call those people textile alchemists. So I put together this awesome little top 10 tools for every used clothing upcycler. And you can get a free download if you're interested, but I want to show you what those tools are. And you can get a free download if you email hello@crispina.eco. It's ECO. And Crispina is like my first name, which is the handle of whatever platform you might be looking at, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook. So yep, it's hello@crispina.eco. And we will just say top 10 tools in the subject line, and we'll send you that free download. But before we do that, let me show you what those top 10 tools are, because you might not really need the download when you're done. So first of all, the first tool that I feel like is really super necessary for anybody who's recycling textiles are a good pair of scissors. And I actually have 3 pairs of scissors in my toolbox. These are my favorite tool. These are Ernest Wright dressmaker shears. They're handmade in Sheffield, England, and they're like the most amazing scissors in the world. I have actually used I don't know if every, but certainly not every kind of scissors, but I've used probably hundreds of different kinds of scissors in my career. And these scissors are expensive and guaranteed for life and beautifully made. They feel great in your hand, and they're just like, I don't know, a beautiful tool. I value my scissors so much that I put them away. I don't use them for anything other than fabric. And I also, I use them every day. So it's important for me to have a tool that works really well for me. So because of that, and because these are such a beautiful tool that I plan to use for the rest of my life, I have 2 different pairs of scissors in my toolkit as well. This is another pair of Ernest Wright little thread snippers. They actually don't make this style anymore with the enamel handles, but they do make a pair that's like the stork. You guys might have seen those. And actually, stork scissors were originally designed to cut umbilical cords. And I don't know why. Like, why do storks and umbilical cords go together? I really don't know. But in this scissor sheath is another little really cool thing, and I have one of these for my larger pair as well. The scissor sheath is something I found online, and it's leather, and it just makes like throwing these in your bag super awesome. So dressmakers shears are about like an 8.5-inch scissor. These are like 4 to 5 inch, like a little embroidery scissor. I use this rather than a seam ripper. I prefer this. And then I also have in my toolkit a kind of crappy pair of scissors that I use to cut cardboard, paper, anything that's not fabric. And I keep these all 3 together so that I don't run into a place where I'm like, oh, I need to cut this piece of sandpaper and I'm just going to use my fabric scissors because they're there. No, keep them all together and you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that's, actually count that as 2 tools, but actually there's 3. Then we talk about pins, and I actually recently saw this really cool video on YouTube about a woman who uses clips rather than pins. I love that idea. I haven't had an opportunity to try those out, but my pins are really, they're a lot of these pins are kind of bent, and I don't know if you can see that, but can you see the pin? I'm just going to move it close to the camera, and I got two different cameras here. So there's a pin. It's 1 3/4 inches long. They're quilter's pins, technically called. They're and I really like that because when you're going through like bulky layers of, like, I do a lot of outerwear recycling, like sweaters and sweatshirts and that kind of thing, you can poke that through more than one layer, and a couple layers, and it's long enough to reach the other side. Somebody's telling me they have no sound. Hold on, let me see if there's actually, let's see what's going on. Testing. Hello. It seems to be working on my end. I don't know if maybe you're muted. I don't know. Check the mute button on your computer. That's happened to me before when I haven't had sound. Does anybody else? How's everybody doing out there? Can you hear me? Let me know in the comments, because somebody, Linda's having trouble, and I don't know if it's Jessica, Alex. Yes, vintage umbilical cord scissors are so beautiful. And I'll tell you, I sell them in my shop from Ernest Wright. I sell the dressmakers and the umbilical cord scissors, or the stork scissors. And they're, this company's like, I don't know, over 100 years old, and they make the scissors by hand. So they really do look like those vintage ones. I think they're the same mold they've been using for, I don't know, 100 years. So, okay, cool. Randy, you can hear me. Sharon, awesome. Thank you guys, Anita and Sharon. Linda, I hope you figure it out. I know you can't hear me, so if anybody can help Linda in the comments on, she's on Facebook, please let her know to check the mute button on your computer. Sometimes that is actually just the issue. Anyway, back to the broadcast over here. First of all, you guys, I was late this morning. I was so frustrated. I was sitting in traffic, and I just, where I live, there's never traffic except for today. There was. So I got started a little late, so I didn't get my first little thing. Well, I want to tell you about it. So I'm going to change the format of how we're doing my tutorials on Thursdays, and I'm going to do it so that I'm going to get on a little early every week, have time to chit chat with you guys, field any comments or questions or ideas that you want to bounce around for a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then we're going to go right into the teaching part of the tutorial. And I'm going to record those so that I can post them on my YouTube channel and have that be like a real informative piece of information for people later. And I'm going to try to not address any comments or anything during the recording, and then do like a Q&A at the end. So I was intending to start that today, but because of my, I was a little disjointed when I was late, so I wasn't able to get that going. But the other thing I'll tell you while we're taking a little break from the top 10 tools for upcycling textile waste. Next week, I'm going to do a series. So I think it's going to start on Wednesday. I'll send an email out to anybody, and I'll make an announcement on each of the, well, it's hard for me to make announcements on YouTube. I haven't figured that out yet. But if you want to be in the loop, send me a direct message on whatever platform you're on, or message me somehow, email me if you can, and let me know, and I'll put you on the email list. I'm going to do a series. We're going to make sun hats next week. And it's a challenge, and I'm going to start you guys right off from the very beginning with a pattern. I'll have a couple of different, I've been working on a few samples. You can either hand sew or machine sew these hats. So they're going to be short little segments, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to do 3 or 4 of them, and make sun hats next week. And then there's like a little surprise at the end, a little, it's a challenge. So there's prizes you can enter, and I'm excited about it. So anyway, okay. So that's my announcement. That should have happened at the very beginning of the segment, but anyway, it happened now, and that's just fine. So back to the top 10 tools. We've talked about scissors. We have 3 different kinds of scissors in our toolkit. These are my fabric scissors that I only use for cutting fabric. That's called an 8-inch dressmaker, that size. You can get them left or right-handed, and the company that makes these scissors and that also makes these scissors it's called Ernest Wright and Sons, and they make these by hand in Sheffield, England. They have been making them using the same facility and tiny factory for over 100 years, and they're awesome. I mean, I've never had a nicer pair of scissors. And they come packaged in this beautiful box. Like, this is how you get them. So if you, the light's on that a little weird, but this beautiful, and it has like, you know, your scissors lay right inside of there. Okay. And then the junky scissors that I use for everything that's just like not fabric. So paper, cardboard, whatever else you might need to cut that would damage your beautiful sewing scissors. Okay, then we talked about our pins and our pin cushion. So here's my pin cushion. I actually make and sell these as well. This is like a little mason jar. And the thing that's really cool about this particular type of pin cushion, if you're like me or now in the warm weather where we are, it's nice to be able to take your stuff with you if you're going to sit outside, or, you know, I like to go sit at the beach with my girlfriend Jan, and just to have something to stitch. So you can actually take the pin cushion part out. It's a mason jar, so you can push it through the lid and then flip it over. So all the pins and needles and sharp things are on the inside. And then when you toss it in your bag, you don't run the risk of having those things poke into the bag or your hand or whatever. So pins, pin cushion. The pins I use are 1 3/4 inches long. They're actually technically called quilter's pins. If you're looking for them online, I also sell them in my shop at crispina.eco if you're interested. And then you can see it's loaded right up. I got pins, I got safety pins, I got a few needles in there for different types of sewing, and we're going to talk about needles next. So hand sewing needles. Most of what I make, I design with hand sewing. And then later I'll go back and like translate it into machine sewing. I find that it's perfectly useful, and it's easier to kind of like make fabrics go together by hand, and pins, and you don't have to like sew the whole thing by hand. You can just kind of get a feel for it. So hence I have the stash, and here's my little, I make these. I make a lot of things, in case you haven't noticed. So this is a little kit, and it's got a little sticker on it there that says Crispina.eco. And then inside here this is designed to be like a reusable little needle book. So inside of here is a piece of fabric. And this one's got a whole bunch of different needles in it. So these needle books are also available in my shop, but you can just know, like, you probably already have a bunch of the stuff at your house. So I use a big fat, I'm going to see if I can show you this, if it's easier to see when I'm holding it against the paper. So this is a large size yarn darner. So I start with a yarn darner that's big enough to fit my yarn through. I do a lot of sewing with yarn. Wool, I generally use wool, or sometimes I use you know, like if I'm doing fine sewing on like a cashmere or something, I will use a cashmere yarn. And then I go right down to a small size stitching, a whole, you know, like for putting a button on, like, you know, something that you put like thread from like a sewing machine through. So I think I have 6 or 8 different size hand sewing needles. And, you know, as long as you have a range of sizes, you're good. You don't have to have any particular size. It's just nice to have a range when you get started and have them easily accessible. And again, this time of year, I like to kind of take it on the road a little bit. So it's nice to have them in a kind of little kit, and, you know, just to put them back in there when you're done, so you can always keep track of those. So in that kit, there's the needles. They're called yarn darners, or the big fatties that are like good for putting yarn through. I have embroidery or crewel needles that are kind of in the middle range. And then the just basic hand sewing needles are the small ones that you can use for putting a button back on, or, you know, if you've got a little something that you want to sew with machine sewing thread, those are the ones to use. Okay, cool. So we already talked about the pin cushion. The next thing I use a lot, and it took me a very long time to make the shift from my trusty scissors, is a rotary cutter. And I've never looked back. I seriously did not try using a rotary cutter until I think I was like 5 or 6 years into my business, and I did a lot of hand cutting. And today, after, you know, 30 years of cutting with my hands, my hands are, you know, they're a little tired, but this saves your hands. It's this particular brand. I'm not like an affiliate or anything, but this particular brand is made by it's called Olfa, Olfa, and the shape of this particular rotary cutting handle fits in my hand nicely. I don't know. I've tried a bunch of different kinds, and this is my favorite. And you can change the blades very easily with these. And I have a little blade changing video on my website if you're interested. It gets a little, like if you don't put the pieces down in order, putting it back together is a little tricky. But yeah, the rotary cutter is a must, and that comes in a kit with this cool ruler that's see-through, so you can like cut your fabric. A lot of quilters use this type of ruler. And then it also comes with a cutting mat, and I'll just grab mine over here. And I'll tell you a little story about my cutting mat. This mat is not the one that came with the rotary cutter and the rotary cutting blade. I bought this at the art supply store here in the Berkshires called Miller Supply, if you're local. It's called a self-healing mat. They're expensive. I think this costs around $40 or $50. And I find that this type of mat works much better with my rotary cutting blades than the one that comes with the rotary cutter. I feel like the ones that come with the rotary cutter, they have like they almost feel like an emery board on the surface. And I feel like that dulls the blades. And I kind of feel like they planned it that way because those blades are kind of pricey. So if you haven't already purchased one that is with the rotary cutter, like if you have need for a new mat, check out the self-healing mats. You know, you can get a mat if you have a local art supply store, and if you don't, go to like Dick Blick or Utrecht Art Supply online. They will probably have those and be able to ship them to you. Okay, then let's see what else. Oh, sweater rakes. Now, this is kind of an unusual tool, although for some reason I've recently seen these advertised on like Instagram. I've been carrying these in my shop for over 10 years, I think, and it's still my very favorite tool. Let's see if I got a piece of white. Yeah, here we go. This is going to make it easier to see. So this tool, I'm going to bring it close. There's two different cameras I'm using, so just bear with me if you don't mind. This tool, they're made in Australia, and they have, let's see if I can get the angle right there. They have this weird kind of like coil on both of the edges. So there's two edges, top and bottom, and you use it by just pulling it across a piece of fabric, and it takes off. Let's see if I can do it on my sweatshirt here. My sweatshirt doesn't really have a lot of surface lint, but it takes off any kind of surface lint, pills. If like I have a upholstered chair in my studio where my cat hangs out, and when I just, when I want to clean it, I use a vacuum. Well, the vacuum cleaner takes forever. It's like you got to go back and forth. This thing right here, this little sweater rake, is the tool for that as well. It just takes all of the animal hair right off of any kind of upholstery. I use this to not just clean, but like to freshen all of the garments that I recycle. And again, this is also quite expensive. They're like $50 in my shop. I import them from Australia, and it just costs a ton of money to get them here, but they're great. And they don't ever seem to wear out or dull, or there's no reason to ever need to replace it. So I highly recommend a sweater rake. And I use them on my clothing too, like in my wardrobe. If I have, sometimes on the sweaters, you get like pills under here, and they just, or like if you have like fleece leggings or anything between your legs, you get like pills. You can this will freshen all of that right up and it makes used clothing look like new clothing. So it's a great tool. The other things I really love to use are, this is, let me see, I have a little piece of fabric for this somewhere. I think I'm just going to skip it. This is a giant needle. And I use this a ton. I use it for putting together potholder rug segments to make larger rugs. I use it for any kind of like large scale stitching that I want to do. It's really hard to find this kind of tool. The first one I ever saw, I got from a Shaker Village museum, and they use them for, those woven like taped seats that the shakers, I don't know if you know that, but anyway, the seats that they make from shaker chairs are often woven with like a cotton, almost like a twill tape. And they use something like this to do that work. So I got one there and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the coolest tool ever. And now I have a friend who makes these for me and I sell them in my shop. And it's just such a simple thing. It's like a nice piece of, this one's made out of cherry wood, and you can fit like a really thick piece of fabric through there. So it's, you don't have to worry about trying to thread something or having it really be hard to pull through, because it's a nice tool, and they're not expensive. I think they're like 24 bucks or something like that. Okay, then the other thing that I did not bring with me, because I'm actually not in my studio right now, I love my steam iron. And my steam iron is actually called a gravity feed iron. Does anybody out there have a gravity feed iron? Because let me just tell you, they're super awesome. They're, it's like, it looks like it has an IV bottle. It's got this water reservoir that you fill. I fill it with tap water, and it comes down a tube, and it has, well, let me show you. There's a picture. I drew a picture of my steam iron, and I can show you that at least. This is what it looks like. It's got, it plugs into a regular outlet. It's got this shoe that goes on the bottom. So it's like it's called a Teflon shoe that keeps the bottom really nice and smooth and slippery. So it glides right across any type of fabric surface. And there's water that feeds right into this iron. So you can hit a button and it creates a ton of steam. And I'll tell you, if there was one tool that, well, it's hard to say because all of these tools are very important to my process, but the iron makes everything look beautiful. Like this blanket behind me that I have here, before I steam ironed this, it wasn't really smooth. It was kind of like the surface was kind of what I call waffly. So steam irons are great. I couldn't bring mine with me to show you because it's got that water reservoir and it makes it really hard to move it from where it's plugged into my studio. And then let's see. The other thing that I also highly recommend for any textile upcycling toolkit is a simple tape measure. Just, something I have one that's I have actually two tape measures, one that's like a 60-inch tape measure and one that's like I think it's 120 inches. And that's useful if you're doing any kind of like upholstery or, just to have both. The 60-inch one is easy to wear, like these tags are on my sweatshirt, but like just around your neck if you're working. And the extra long one is just nice to have on hand when that need arises. So how's everybody doing out there? Does anybody have any questions for me? Let's see. Oh, Little Miss Attitude, you had an iron made by Rowenta. Yeah, I've heard Rowenta irons are great. I've never used one. My gravity feed iron I got on the internet. I just Google gravity feed iron. I use mine all the time, and I often leave it plugged in for like hours on end. And so I kind of go through them. And the kind of sad thing about the gravity feed irons is that they're not, you can't take them apart and fix them. Like they're just made really cheaply, and they're about $100, $110, maybe $100 by the time you pay shipping. And they're kind of disposable. I mean, mine last me a couple of years and then I have to replace them. So that's the sad truth about what the quality of tools that are available to us, except those scissors, I'm telling you. And if somebody made a gravity feed iron that I could buy once and it would last me for 25 years, I would pay hundreds of dollars for it. And it would be so lovely to have that option. I have not found it. If anybody out there could recommend a really superior brand of gravity feed irons, I would be really so excited to learn about that. And does anybody, I don't want to leave any questions unanswered. I want to make sure you guys have the tools you need, because next week, we are going to have a series of days. We're going to make sun hats. So if you want to learn, it's going to be like 15, 20 minutes. I think it's probably going to run 3 or 4 days. If you don't catch the live, class, if you will, we're going to have, recordings available. So you don't have to worry about tuning in at any particular time. They will be at noon, my time. That's Eastern Standard Time. And I think they might just be on YouTube. I'm not sure. But if you guys are interested, let me know and put, I just need your email address so I can send your, an announcement as to when that goes on. And let's see, Anita, you have a small handheld electric steamer. How do you like it? I have never actually used one of those. I think I know what you mean. Like it has a tank with the wheels. Sometimes they come on wheels and you just kind of steam stuff. I've seen them be used a lot in the garment industry. But I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. But anyway, I think that's awesome. The other thing I've heard about, which I have used, but I have not found one that I like as much, is, that sometimes you see these things that they're called D-pillars or something, and they almost look like a shower head, and they have like a little plastic case that goes with it, and you put batteries in it, and it takes the pills off the surface of your fabric. I don't like them. I don't think they work that well. They take a time, and plus they take batteries, which are gross. Like, what's going to happen to all those batteries after they're expired? So yeah, this is like a no-tech, like super useful tool for doing the same job, really. Just this is called a sweater rake for anyone who's just tuned in. And I'm just going to hold the paper behind it so you can see what it looks like. It's a really simple tool. It has two edges. It makes any kind of used clothing that has pills or like surface lint or animal hair, takes that all right off of it. And it works just like a charm. And I will make a little video about that too. It's hard for me to really show you while I'm the only one here. I don't have anybody holding the camera for me right now. So I'll make a little video another time. Yeah, Randy says sometimes she uses disposable razors to de-pill things. I've done that too. It's kind of like sanding floors. You get to a point where you can't sand the floor again because it's going to just not be there. And it's the same thing with the razors. Like when you shave the surface of your sweater, if you do that a few times, all of a sudden, you got a hole in your sweater. So you have to just do that really sparingly. And it does work. I've definitely found that to be good. So that is what is up with my 10 tools. And I don't want to keep you guys too long. We got a little bit of a late start today. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in today. And if you're watching this as a recording, thanks for being here. And Thursdays, we usually get started at noon. Today there was some kind of traffic accident or something going on, so we didn't get started until a little bit later than that. But next week, we're going to do a series. We're going to make sun hats. So if you're interested in doing a sun hat next week, think about the materials you might want to use. Think about, I really encourage recycling. So if you have any old clothing kicking around, stuff like men's dress shirts, that weight is going to be a really ideal weight for a sun hat. Maybe you have clothing that belonged to somebody that you love that's passed it on to you. Maybe you have some outgrown clothing from your kids when they were little. And oh yes, Randy is asking. So before I go off to Randy, I just want to say, think about the materials you might want to bring with you next week for our little series on sun hats. Start just putting them together somewhere and to get that started, and then let me know if you're interested. I think it's fine if you're comfortable putting your emails in the feed, although I do think it's probably better if you put them in a direct message, a DM to me, so they're not out in the public realm. But whatever. I mean, they're probably, I don't think we have a bit of privacy no matter what. So put your email address down somewhere and I will find it and put you on the list to be notified about the course as to when exactly it will happen. I think we're going to do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's really not a course. It's a series of tiny little classes, 15, 20 minutes each, 3 or 4 of them. Okay, cool, you guys. Thanks. You guys are awesome. The 10 tools, Randy wanted a recap. I'm going to go through them quick. Scissors. Scissors are the first tool on the list, and I actually carry with me 3 pairs. So I have my swanky Ernest Wright scissors that are an investment. They cost $144 actually. I sell them in my shop because I love them. And I feel like these are the best scissors I've ever used, and I've used hundreds of different kinds of scissors over the years. So my Ernest, these are called dressmakers. They're an 8.5-inch dressmaker scissor. Can't tell you enough about them. I love them, and I use them every day. So in order to keep those really in pristine condition, I carry with me a crappy pair of scissors that are, I'm going to hold my paper up again so you can see these. Crappy. I think these scissors have been in my life since I was about 14. They're loose and they cut anything. They're not sharp. I don't need them to be sharp. I cut paper. I cut, if I'm cutting out a pattern, I use those. And then I also have a pair of embroidery scissors that I actually prefer my little tiny, very sharp pointed embroidery scissors to, I prefer them to a seam ripper. I'm not great with I tend to make holes with seam rippers that kind of irk me later. So embroidery scissors, also made by Ernest Wright. They actually don't make this brand, this particular model anymore, but they do make the stork scissors, which I love. Whenever I order them, I sell them in my shop, and they sell out every time. And one time, I think I'm just going to keep a pair because they're so nice too. Okay, then we go off to pins and pin cushions. This is, these pins are, it's very hard for me to show you these on camera, but I'm going to hold my little paper up again and see if that helps. So they have a ball on the end, and they're 1 3/4 inches long. They're technically called quilting pins, and they're really nice if you're recycling anything that's bulky or thick, because you can pin through it without like losing the pointy end somewhere in there. So I recommend those. And then the pin cushion, you gotta have a pin cushion. I mean, I guess you could use a magnet, but when you use the magnet, then I tend to find that everything's kind of stuck together. So I prefer the pin cushion. And these little ball jar pin cushions are great. You can find them in my shop, and you can turn the cushiony part upside down and secure it with the lid so that they're great for traveling, especially this time of year if you want to get outdoors with your projects. Then we were talking about hand sewing needles. I carry this little pouch in here. I have 3 different, actually I think I have more like 6 different sizes, but really if you have like small, medium, large, you're probably pretty good. And a range of sizes is nice to have with you. My sweater rake, we talked about this just a couple minutes ago. So this is a great tool for just making any kind of pills or surface lint disappear, come right off of your clothing that you're recycling. Then we go to the rotary cutter. The rotary cutter, rotary cutting ruler, and mat are really kind of the backbone of my toolkit. And I use all 3 of those things together often. And then I have a wooden needle that I like to use for any kind of I like to do things like wacky scale. So if anybody's familiar with my potholder rugs, you know that they're like potholders, but they're just blown up. So any kind of sewing or joining of potholder rugs, if you're rug making in general, if you're doing a toothbrush rug, this tool is really helpful for that. It's just, again, a super simple thing. There's no batteries needed. It's just, this one's made out of a nice piece of cherry. A friend of mine makes these for my shop, and they're, you can fit like a fat thing through there to stitch with. So it's just a tool that's kind of unusual that I find very useful that is not readily available in very many spots. Okay, and then tape measure and steam iron. Those are the last of the 10 top tools for every clothing upcycler. And actually, if you give me your email address in your direct message to me today, I will send you this PDF, and you can download it and have the list that I use for all my tools right at your fingertips. So 2 reasons you might want to send me your email today. One is that PDF, the 10 top tools for every textile waste upcycler. And the second reason is because next week we're doing a series of tutorials, 15 to 20 minutes, 3 or 4 days in a row. I'm not sure exactly if it'll take 3 or 4 days. And I think we're going to start on Wednesday. I got a question for you before we go. If I start the series on Wednesday and it goes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, do we do Saturday, Sunday, or do we just skip the weekend and do Monday? Leave me a comment. Is weekend is good or weekend is not good? Tell me do you want to go Saturday or do you want to go Monday? Put a comment in there which would work better for you. They're gonna be at noontime Eastern Standard Time. So if whatever that means for wherever you're located, let me know. If you're listening to a recording, please let me know because that'll help me schedule when that's going to work the best. Weekend is not good. That's what I thought. So I think we should do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. That's what I'm thinking. Anybody else? Anita, is everybody with you? Let's see. I don't know if I don't see anybody else telling me if it's the weekend or Monday, but I'll come back and check. Anyway, have a really great rest of your beautiful, I'm telling you what, it's like the most glorious day today out here in Western Massachusetts. It's like 68 degrees and breezy and the sun is shining. It's just glorious. So if that's the situation where you guys are, get out there and enjoy it, would you? And have a great week. I'll see you next week. And thanks for tuning in. Okie dokie. Have a great one.